Wow, guys, we just had BSF Online 2021, and you know, it's pretty good. It's pretty good, but I think one of the biggest discussions we have right now is how do we fix premium? Because we have the premium tournament on Sunday, and I mean, the state of premium is it's not something that was hidden. You know, everyone kind of knew about it, but we never really had the official tournaments to kind of hammer in on the issues. Even though we probably didn't need to, but you know, now we have data. We have videos of things happening. This is a good time to talk about it as well, because Bushiroad is kind of they're listening to their customers. They want to fix the formats. More EP is committed to all the formats, still being supported. Premium being one of them, and they just need time to do maintenance on this format. That's why we're not getting a premium collection this year. We're getting a revival selection though, so that's pretty good. But every card is premium support, but they want to fix the format, and here's some suggestions on how to fix the format. Now, there are 5 criteria that Bushiroad uses to restrict cards. Number 1, I have them all under me, by the way. Number 1 is reduces the variety of clans used in tournaments. 2, lengthens time needed for a match to the extremes. 3, will greatly affect future card development. 4, requires complex methods to handle due to unpleasant behavior that was not intended during development. And 5, with the criteria above in mind to keep the number of restrictions to a minimum. Now, number 4, I probably can't really extrapolate on because I'm not the developer of the card game. The rest of them are very good points, and we can kind of talk about it and just go through what needs to be hit. Now, right now it's a bit complex because, we've got really, really top tier decks that are very toxic and degenerates in the entire metagame. And then after that, we've got kind of the same thing, except not as fast as those decks. And then under that, we've just got really, really good decks that can just a step above everyone else. So after everything gets hit, those ones are clearly going to be the big favorites on being good. So the solution for me that I'm going to propose is we nuke everything, right? Everything gets hit. From the top will get the hammer. We'll get the big hammer, and the lower ones will get a gentle slap, right? Gentle slap to maybe keep them alive and see how it goes. The key thing is we just want to make a decent, balanced format where more stuff gets released in overdress, and slowly like all the decks kind of get supported like that. Clan collection is going to change things as well, so we'll just go through it like that and hope for the best. But also the other thing that's on the horizon is those heal guardians that's coming out in clan collection. They kind of with the second effect where if you place them on the regard circle, it will give you 1 damage. That is a big thing to consider. So we have to balance the entire format around the fact that you don't die with 1 damage, and that is pretty hard for premium because with 1 damage you can do a lot. So we want to get to a state where with just 1 damage you can play normally. You're freely able to give damage to people and not like super fear yourself getting killed from 0 to 6, and that hasn't been premium for a while, but nowadays I think that's where we need to head to. So with that in mind, let's start talking about the ban list. Now, as you can see on the screen here, we already have Taro, and she has been in loops since her release half a decade ago in a Wiseman loop, right? Back then, you would attack multiple times with this terrible card called Angelic Wiseman. But the key thing is that he could Soul Blast 3 in the battle phase, and if you can do that, you can Soul Blast this, and then you can stand again and attack again. So she's been doing this for a while, and it's surprising that she hasn't been hit yet, right? She basically embodies one of the big things of limiting card design, because every time you print a card that Soul Blast in the attack phase or the battle phase, you have to worry about Taro being abused for it, and right now it is being abused like heck. So what's the problem with this card? Well, right now we have Glepnir Loop, which reaches infinite power. Now, how does it reach infinite power? You have a Gelja. You have 1 card in your deck, which is Gelja. You Soul Blast 2 of these with like Kazandes or the new Wolf from the Keta Sanctuary TD. They're just going to bottom deck, and then you use another Gelja to Soul Charge top 2 cards, and then you use another Gelja to Soul Charge the top 2 cards. You're back to just 1 Gelja in the deck. And then you can loop that, and Gelja gives power, and then Kazane powers herself up, etc., etc., until you reach infinite, and then you attack multiple times with a Force 2 Glepnir, and the Glepnir can Soul Blast during the battle phase to put a Taro back, and then you have a bunch of infinite attacks. I think it's like 7, 8, or something around those numbers of infinite attacks that your opponent has to guard. And since they're infinite, overtriggers don't work. You have to guard with like a billion nulls, so they're basically dead. They're basically dead. I think you can get more attacks as you attack and trigger stands, and then you stand infinite power cards. So you're insanely dead. The other thing is that you don't actually need to hit infinite power. You can just attack multiple times with a card that is on a force 2, and that will really put on a lot of pressure, and likely you can just die. So Taro has just been causing problems for a very, very long time. So I think it's perfectly fine to hit it to 1. And I mean, Genesis decks a lot of the time are just built around this Taro, and I think that's very, very unhealthy, of course. With just 1 Taro, you cannot infinite loop. You still just get 1 extra attack in the battle phase if you can battle phase a Soul Blast, which I think is fine. I think that's great, having this option there. But otherwise, it basically dismantles Gleipnir Loop, which should be where we should be going to. Now, for the rest of Genesis, you still have like Regalia if you want to. You have Valkyrian, and you can play a less toxic version of Valkyrian. But we'll get to that later. So Taro to 1 is what I propose. The next other deck, the other deck, well, decks that have been causing problems have been Blademaster and Valkyrian. Now, these cards aren't a problem by themselves. Soen is terrible in premium. Valkyrian might be okay, right? But the biggest problem with these is they drive check. Well, the vision token that Blademaster makes drive check, and Valkyrian drive checks. And if you drive check a stand, you stand itself, right? That's pretty bad. There's videos of this in Springfest where people just trigger stands and win. And, you know, the deck itself is not hard to play. It's like a very, very low ceiling deck, low skill deck. But also, if you brick, it's just also very lame. So it's like this super inconsistent deck that kind of ruins tournaments. There's literally nothing any players can do. All you can do is pretty much pray when you're playing against this. And if you're playing this, all you can do is pray as well, because you just need to hit stands, right? So it's a very terrible, toxic environment. And we need to change this. But the change isn't like banning Blademaster with like stand triggers and things like that. That's not a good change. There's like 2 ways we can do this, right? One of them is like a kind of like a errata on certain cards, and then the other one is just errata stand triggers. The errata on cards can be like kind of like more lore-y or like kind of gamey, etc. Like I was thinking like vision tokens. After they attack, they just retire themselves. So, you know, vision token, it's pretty much a vision. It does an attack, bam, it's gone. It's like the vision has been completed, right? The other one is like the astral plane. You can just errata something that the astral deity on the astral plane can't be stood by stand trigger effects. That's pretty gamey, but you know, when we're erratating things like a vision token, which is a token that's, you know, it's not even rare, and an astral plane, it's very easy. You just add the rule and it's there. You don't need to change kind of cards, etc, etc. The other thing you can do is you can just errata all stands so that they have to choose another unit to stand. Now that's not going to change anything if you trigger a stand off a Vanguard attack, because you always choose another unit. Well, not a unit, a Regard, sorry. You just choose another Regard to stand. But it does change things for like a Valkyrian, right? So if your Valkyrian attacks and triggers a stand, you have to choose another Regard. Can't choose itself. So as long as they never print a card that makes 2 vision tokens, or 2 drive checking tokens or whatever, units, right? Then there will be no problems. And I guess this makes it so there's a good starting point, okay? So we fix stands for now. What do we do in the future? Let's be more careful with stands. Of course, you know, if you trigger Armor to Noah, the Keta Sanctuary over trigger, then everything can kind of stand. Like you can stand another unit that drive checks to get another stand another unit. But you know, if you've drive checked an Armor to Noah, you're probably winning very hard. And if you drive checked the over trigger while running a deck full of stands, then I think you're entitled to have fun. You're entitled to have fun. So I think that's how we fixed it. We'll leave it up to Bushi to figure out the stand problem, but I definitely think it's a very they know about it. They know about it, right? The next one we have is Nuadayo and Hyuga. Now, you might be going, you know, Hyuga and Nuadayo are literally built for each other, because how are you going to hit the Nuadayo, like, you know, 5 same name condition without Hyuga? And I'll counter you by saying, you know, if you want Nue's effect, you better work hard to get it, right? You better work hard to get it. Now, Nue has 2 effects, right? One of them is that it can superior stride during the main phase, and it gives itself like a 5 guard restrict attack. And the second one is it stands everything. Now, when you combo both together, it's absolutely insane. Well, it can stand everything, but basically you can only stand, you choose one card and stand everything with the same name as it. All the regards are the same name as it. So Hugo, since Hugo makes everything the same name, you stand the whole field, right? So if you want those effects, I think you should work hard for them, right? A 5-card guard restrict that doesn't allow you to G-Guardian, that is incredibly insane. So if you want that, you better be playing Metamorphoxes, you better be playing Owazu, your deck better be full of 4-ofs of nearly everything for you to be able to do that. Otherwise, I don't think you deserve to get a Nuwa-Dio effect. And it only gets worse because you have things like Tribash now, which gives your Nuwa-Dio crit. So normally, if you face a Nuwa-Dio, you probably just no guard the Nuwa-Dio, or you guard all the rears, and you know, you take the Nuwa-Dio, or you guard the Nuwa-Dio and take all the rears. Like one of those options, right? But now you just have to guard the Nuwa-Dio because it comes with crit pressure if you have Tribash. So I think as future cards get released, it has the potential to make Nuwa-Dio more worse as well, like more deadly, and it's already fast before Tribash. So I think, you know, we just choice restrict this, and at least Murakumo is not just known for just Nuwa-Dio deck, right? I mean, it technically isn't, but Murakumo as in general is just not a very good premium clan, and it's only good because it has this stupid stride that is insanely strong, right? Insanely broken. I mean, you can talk about erratas on this card. I just think, you know, choice restrict this, make it hard to make it slow and hard to get a Nuwa-Dio, and then maybe, you know, print more support later on. You know, print more support later on. But at least your deck is just no, your clan is not just known for just being Nuwa-Dio.clan, right? Next we have is Castile. I don't know how this card is still around, right? Castile has dodged every single ban list for a while. Castile Diamondus, by the way. And ever since this card's inception, it's literally just there to one-shot opponents. Like, has there ever been a fair deck with this card? I don't think there is. And right now, you know, it's if you ban, like, Dark Irregulars is not as good as the other loop decks, in my opinion, or the other top. It's basically a top 4. You know, Blademaster and Valkyrian because they have stupid stand cards. They got Murakumo because it's just fast and stupid, and then you got Taro, which is impossible to beat. Right, but this card, you know, right after those 4 is this, and why is this even in the format? It's not even healthy for the game. The entirety of this card is just built around 0 to 6 your opponent. The effect itself is just limiting in what you can design, right? Because if I design a Brufus and a Castile that, you know, doesn't let my opponent, you know, use auto effects, then I win. Oh wait, they did. So yeah, that's pretty bad. What about if I combine NLK with like Mofi? Oh yeah, that's pretty good, right? So this card itself is just very, it's weak card design, right? It needs to go, right? It needs to go already. This needs to go to 0, okay? After this goes to 0, then you don't have to be worried about what you print for any Dark States nation, and you can actually use the rest of your Stride deck now, right? You could use, like when you had this card, all you use is this and Blademaster, right? But now, nowadays you didn't even use Blademaster because you just win off this. But now you can actually use everything else, right? So I think that this is the way to go. This needs to go, all right? Now, those are basically the big 5 decks that everyone is talking about. But you know, after you ban those 5s, there is still more that can actually, that'll just dominate the metagame, in my opinion. And basically what I'm saying is we need to get rid of all the loops. The loops need to go. Let's just get rid of them. And let's start with Songstar, right? This card is, this card is only used in the Songstar. The deck is called like a Songstar loop, right? This card is not used in anything else. It is a rare, right? Pale Moon doesn't use this in any other build, right? Right now, this deck is not played because there are other loops that are faster and better. Once those loops are gone, this deck is pretty good. So let's get rid of it. Ban this card to 0. This isn't a card that we really need to worry about hitting because no other deck uses it. It's easy to get and it can go, right? It can go. The other card that we need to get rid of is Tomba. Now, I don't know if many people know about the Murakumo Infinite Loop. Somehow we make videos of it like once every couple of years, and no one remembers there's a Murakumo Infinite Loop. I guess it's because Nuwa-Dio came out recently and everyone sees Murakumo as the Nuwa-Dio build, but this deck is really fast now, and it's only not as fast because, well, not in the format as much because everything else is faster, which is crazy. All the other loop decks are faster. So once those are gone, it's insanely easy to get. Well, not is it? Well, the pieces are insanely easy to get into your hand, and you win. So let's ban Tama. Tama's not that easy to get. It's like, I think it's only a PR, and it's only used in Murakumo Infinite Loop. Once this card is gone, there is no way for the Infinite Loop to really function. So let's hit it to 0. This is basically 5, right? Well, not 5, but you don't use it in other Murakumos. I mean, we've hit Murakumo twice though, so people might feel bad, but these are both toxic decks. Nuodaio in Infinite Loop. Let's give Murakumo some better options, right? Well, you can play Shiryuki. Let's make Shiryuki better, right? Let's go. Now that all the loops are gone though, there's gonna be like still some good decks that are floating around that like a tinge above everything else, and in my opinion we can give them a gentle slap and put them on their way, and I think the format can evolve itself from there. So the first one I want to say is Prankster Girl of Mirrorland. Now if you've seen Derek Dow play Pale Moon, I think he topped SEA or the area region, and then topped NA with this deck in a loop format. The deck is pretty good. The Harry build is pretty good. You do a lot of attacks, you draw a lot of cards, you have battle phase tricks. Let's hit its consistency a bit. Let's hit Mirrorland Prankster Girl to 2, right? For Prankster Girl, very, very consistent. You always get whatever you want, but putting it to 2, maybe hits its consistency, maybe puts it in line with everything else, and I think that's fine. The other deck that I think is similar to Pale Moon is a Grand Blue. And I think we should just hit Colombard. We should choice restrict Colombard and Zazen. Right now, Grand Blue basically does a lot of things that Pale Moon can do as well. So right now we can hit its kind of early game and its consistency in a way, like the Zazen build of it. Because right now, like post-stride Grand Blue is still, I think it's still very, very strong. It's got great defensive options. It can get free stuff. It can build it, compress the deck quite a lot. The early game though with Zazen is quite strong as well. You'd like Colombard searches Zazen, that can open up a GB slot and, you know, call like draw 2 and then put on aggression like that. I think that's a bit too strong. They basically have the best of every single world. So if you want to play a Zazen, you can't play a Colombard. That makes it easy to access. But you know, I think a lot of people just pick Colombard. And the other thing is that if you open up GB early with the Zazen, that means your first Obadiah turn is like calls like more than just 2 cards. So I think that's something that's not really that fair. So let's slow down its early game a bit, so you know it doesn't really affect its late game, so to say. It still have great defensive options, so I think it should be fine and puts it kind of in line with everything else. The other deck that is also very strong, I think, is Luwad. And it's only going to get stronger when, you know, the top decks are gone. We're hitting the main and Bende, right? So we're going to choice restrict these. Right now, like, Luwad can do basically everything it can do before, except now it has a superior ride. So let's get rid of the superior ride if you want to use the main, right? Without the main, the superior ride becomes not as consistent, but if you want to run the main, you have a very consistent early game as well. So I think a lot of people just pick the main and, you know, forgo the superior ride. But, you know, if you want to, then you have to sacrifice your early game, and I think it's fine. I think it's fine. Post-striding Luwad is still very strong. Early game Luwad is still strong as well. You still got that, so let's just get rid of that superior ride. And then also, this is going to be kind of unpopular. We're going to hit Hellhot 8 and Dudley Cheers Lindsay. We're going to choice restrict these two. You have to choose one or the other. And the reason why is that Hellhot 8 is kind of like a loop deck. Once it reaches GB8, it's pretty hard to beat. In order to stop the Hellhot loop attacks, you need to use 3 removal cards, and that's not getting 3 battle phase removals is pretty hard. So we still allow Hellhot 8 to exist, right? Hitting Dudley Cheers Lindsay means that, you know, you have to, if you want to use this heal, then you can't use Jerry Beans. And that combo, Jerry Beans into Dudley, is just very easy search, right? You still have things like Mecha Trainer, of course, that can search it, but that requires Counterblast, which I think is better, kind of slows down the deck a bit. Also, you have like ways like Tempest Sphere to try and dig for vanilla heals, and that can also open up a GB as well. So I think that's fine. Like, I think that's fine using CB to search, but Jerry Beans to search Dudley, we're just nerfing that method to get Hellhot 8, and I think the deck is not dead. Spike Brothers also has like a normal aggressive build as well, so I think that's just fine. So going, but you know, this is definitely on the watch list. This is one of the decks I'd put on the watch list and go, okay, if the combo is still too consistent, maybe we need to do something about it. We want this to be like a finisher combo after your opponent has like put on aggression. Then you can combo them out of existence. But you know, if people are just kind of going heal, and then just popping off immediately, then we've got a real problem, right? And that might happen if the format slows down, which is what we're trying to do. The next one also won't be very popular, and that is Ichigoshima 2-2, right? So I think this card has been a problem for a while, and I mean, there was Ichigoshima Tom, right? That's kind of an unblockable attack. I'm proposing that we restrict Ichigoshima to 2, right? Ichigoshima to 2, and the reason for this is that, you know, we're gonna have more cards in Keta Sanctuary, and we already do have like restanding cards in Keta Sanctuary with the Divine Lepisto, and if you combine that with an Ichigoshima, it's pretty lame, right? It's pretty lame. You can easily play Ichigoshima without Silent Tom, simply because, you know, the restrict of a 0 and a G Guardian is incredibly potent in premium, and you know, by restricting it to 2, it means that if you want to G Guard and go into Ichigoshima, you have to use the first effect, and that means you can only use Ichigoshima for 1 turn, right? And then for the rest of the game, you cannot use her. You can't access this very powerful strike. If you want to slow down and ride something else, and then Ichigoshima, then sure, you can use Ichigoshima for 2 turns. And you have things like Momo, which is also a very strong strike. But you know, having 4 Ichigoshimas and going into every single turn is just very detrimental. And I think it's not healthy when your opponent's hand has, like, you know, they have 14 cards in their hand, and pretty much 10 of them are unusable, and it's only gonna get worse, right? When Keta gets more cards, more restanders, etc., Ichigoshima is just gonna get worse. And of course, there's still the magical Kaliko combo with Amaterasu. But you know, if you want to do that Amaterasu combo with an Ichigoshima, then you have to spend, right? You have to you have to G Guard and then spend your second Ichigoshima to get GB3, and that's fine. You have a 1-turn huge burst. Otherwise, you're comboing the Amaterasu Kaliko with Momo, and I think like that's maybe slightly more guardable. I mean, the power levels get pretty high. I think we still need to take a look at that, but you know, with things like you can like null those attacks with like a 0 Sentinel, right? And I mean, with Kaliko, Amaterasu with Ichigoshima, of course that's a bit harder. You can't null it with a 0, but you can play more one Sentinels, which are better. Of course, this card does get some nerfs because of the grade 3 heals that are coming out, but we're gonna get 4 heals. And like, if later on we get a lot more triggers that are not grade 0, like the grade 2 and grade 1, then maybe we can think of like slowly unrestricting this. But I think hitting it to 2, and of course you can just go into Momo, and I think that's fine. But you know, hitting this to 2 and making Ichigoshima players, or not Ichigoshima, OTT players kind of think about what they want to do is a bit better. Because right now the entirety of OTT is kind of built around Ichigoshima as well, like how strong she is. So we'll see. And lastly, this is the last hit we're gonna do, and that is Jami Congo. I think Jami Congo is an awfully designed card. It is terrible. Like, how do you play a game with only 4 cards in your hand? Right now, it's not that great because the decks are just really fast. But as the format slows down, this basically restricts you to 4 cards in your hand, and with more cards being released, it's just gonna be worse, right? You play this. You require no effort to make your opponent's hand down to 4. Then you play cards that force your opponent to call down cards. That's pretty silly. Or you have Makuro to clear their field if they've been rushing you early. That's pretty silly. Not like, one of the things with Nubatama is like, sure, you can hit their hand low, but your aggression can be like not as strong as the other decks. But right now, again, like things like Tribash giving crits, if you have no cards in your hand, you're just gonna easily take damage and die. Before, you had the advantage of, like, you know, if you rushed a Nubatama, or you just like kind of try to play around the crow, etc. like that. You had a game plan where, okay, Nubatama can only really do like not that many attacks unless they go into dominate or something like that. But the damage output and power line output is kind of still low. But now, like, your strike gets crits, things like that. I think this card actually just needs to go. This just needs to go to 0. It's just a very poorly designed card, and as more cards roll around, this is just going to get worse. And it's actually just very unenjoyable for any player to be playing against a Jami or Congo. Of course, that doesn't mean Nubatama is pretty nerfed in terms of what cards it has, but, you know, this is something that probably Bushiro needs to work on. I mean, I have seen people play old Shiranui, and there is currently like new Shiranui decks out there, but they're not super popular. But I'm sorry, but I think Jami was just it's just bad for the format, it's bad for the future, and it's bad for the past as well. So yeah, this one needs to go, but that's pretty much the last hit. This is a pretty nuclear hit. Everything got hit, all the top decks got hit, and I mean, if there's decks that you're missing, let me know in the comments below. But like things like Bermuda, which rely on the Revere Superior Ride, kind of waiting for the G Guardians or the Heal Guardians to come out and see how that affects it. I mean, the Spirit Ride to Riviera is still quite strong, of course, but you know, I think something like people also complain that I don't ban Huang, but I think in a format where one CB doesn't decide the entirety of the game, I think Huang is fine to exist, and just we have to be careful about what we need to, how the format goes, right? How fast the format is. Premium is definitely a format that I think that the developers of the game do need to pay more attention to. They can't just go, we only ban cards every 6 months. They need to go every set release. They need to have their pulse in the format and go, okay, there's some problematic cards here. Let's keep an eye out for this. And then if things go out of control, if another NLK comes out, another Zazen comes out, they immediately go bam. And their Zazen response is pretty good, but they need to do that more often, right? They need to do that more often. So I think that's about it. Let me know what you guys think of my fixes to premium and what you would change. And if I missed anything, let me know as well. But I'll see you guys in another video. All right, bye.